lot of times I find community where certain things go unsaid because we all understand what's going on. So in particular, I'm thinking about Sunday school at the Islamic Center, and it's a bunch of young 10-year-olds, 11-year-olds, brown boys who look just like me. A lot of things go unsaid. We all know what life is like as a young Muslim boy. So we know that we don't like the police. None of us like we don't like it when they come around. We don't like it when they come show up and ask questions at the Islamics. Like, that's a contrast to who I played basketball with as a elementary school student, because their parents were police officers and they trusted the government and they trusted. So finding yourself as a minority in these spaces is different, because I can't ever tell them that I don't trust the police or I don't like their parents. How am I going to do that? So community alters in that aspect, where I feel like maybe as a brown boy, I was hiding certain parts of myself because it was easier for me to live in that way. And with different community, even now, certain things I won't say because I know it'll ruffle feathers maybe, or cause problems for me. So I think that sort of like shape shifting is something that a young me learned very quickly, that it's going to benefit you. I think that shape shifting is present in everybody after 9/11 in any sense, because I know, I think about my parents, and how difficult is it to send your kid or live in an environment where it's, you know white people, and white people make decisions for you and you have to deal with them every day, but you can't ever tell them or show them you're afraid of the cops being called on you, or you know um government officials coming to your house or prodding and poking at your livelihood and how much money you make, and putting your life under a microscope. You can't really show that fear when you live in an environment where people are not afraid of these things that you are. So relating to South Asianness and Americanness, I think it depends on the context that I'm in. Not to bring it back to like what I mean with shape shifting, I think these are just separate parts of identity. Um, Here on this college campus, I'm South Asian, right? I call myself brown. I'm brown on this campus, and that's how I relate to South Asianness on campus. At home, there's Desi people everywhere. I have no reason to call myself South Asian. That type of identity, I don't need to say then. And Americanness is something I'll never bring up. I almost feel no attachment to the word Americanness at all, because Americanness brings such a negative connotation to it that I don't even want to be associated with Americanness. Americanness means a lot of war, and America means a lot of oppression. So I don't relate to American, um, but I'll say when I go to India, or when I used to go to India, you're highlighted with you're American. You're highlighted as American. You're highlighted as American. Now you can't find community in India. You can't even find community with your cousins, because you are so other. You are like an oppressor. You are America. That doesn't really resonate with me now. Um, that's what Americanness means to me. So here I'm very South Asian, and some people might say I'm even representing South Asia more than my cousins in India. They want to be American, or that's the thought. I know they don't want to be American, but the westernization, we learn about this in classes, right? Like, they have whole classes dedicated to hyphenated identities. It's a cultural phenomenon. We just study it, but people live this life, or I live this life too. So that's how I identify South Asia, brown, Desi, not really American. I have a big appreciation for being Desi and my culture and my ancestors and where I come from, because of how painful my childhood was and my past was. Because having to reckon with identity issues for your youth is like debilitating as a child. So I find joy every day that I'm brown. I honestly feel really happy that I'm brown because, man, if I was something else, I don't know how I'd react, how I'd be, how I'd turn out. So I'm very grateful that this is my reality of being brown. So finding comfort in everything, finding comfort in smells. I actually just burned the sandalwood incense, and I picked sandalwood because my grandfather used to burn the sandalwood incense in his room. That smell is really familiar to me, and I don't know if I could have found that smell in another culture, like in another being another culture, being another ethnicity. Like that's very familiar to me. And the foods I eat here, or the foods I don't eat, like when I go to the dining hall and I complain about how the food has no flavor, that's me enjoying being brown. That's me being happy that I know what flavor is like. So these type of joys is something that I find every day. And I didn't always have the opportunity to find joy in being brown, but now I do. I've learned a lot. So the comforts for my friends and family of being brown, and even those who aren't brown, find maybe they find joy in me being brown because I'm bringing joy everywhere I go. So it's a continuous process. I love it when, you know, I ask my grandma questions and my grandpa questions about their life back in India or their life in America after immigration. That's brown joy too, because they're sharing their story with me and we're all just enjoying life being brown together in America. The the growth that I think has occurred over the last 4 years for me personally allows me to ask these questions now. I wasn't asking these questions when I was 10 or 11 or 12. I had my own problems to do. Now I understand like how my identity and I ask questions about surveillance all the time now. To all the men in my family, I ask questions about subtle racism, systematic racism to my grandma who's been in the New York City public school system. Um, and these questions and everything they get highlighted. If you have to ask the question. If you don't ask the question, it becomes an experience that you brush off. So by me asking these questions, I think everybody learns from what's going on because I get the information that I need for my personal benefit. But hopefully that the older generation, people I'm asking questions to, or even my generation, things are getting put in perspective when you ask a question. For me, healing is a daily process. And although 9/11 was 20 years ago, healing is for me is done every day. And I might not be attributing what I'm healing from to be 9/11, but that is a big moment that probably shaped all the discrimination and pain I felt after. So healing and resilience to me is well, for example, today's Friday, right? So today I went to Jummah. That's healing for me because before I had never made an effort to go to Jummah at home. In college, that was like my first time being an adult and living free is I'm making my own choice to go to Jummah today. And I'm with young individuals and professionals who are making the same decision. And every Friday we do and go to do the same thing and we think the same things and we walk out the same way. So that's healing to me and resilience in the way that we do it all the time and we have the freedom to do this and we aren't discriminated against on our campus to go to Jummah. In other ways we are, but in this aspect on Friday at 1:15, that's what we do. So that's healing. So 10 years ago was a really formative time. So I'm thinking about my healing as identity searching. So the types of questions I was asking myself 10 years ago occurred after facing discrimination, as in I'm the only brown boy in my classes. As a young student, nobody pronounces my name correctly. I don't get respect from teachers. I don't get respect from other kids' parents. Things like that are questions I asked myself back then 10 years ago. And they're also the same questions I ask myself now. So healing from those experiences is occurring daily for me. I'll think about sometimes or some things will remind me of back then when I was 10 or 11. And that's when the healing comes back, right? That's when I think about, oh, look at where I am now and what types of steps can I make um, to really move from these events. And if I can, sometimes you can't. Sometimes you have to think about them for a little bit longer. Who maybe something will come up in another 10 years for me, and I'll be like, wow, that's how I felt when I was 11. So healing is a daily practice. You won't ever get fully healed when your life is as painful as it was. So I think that's a very fair thing to heal every day, or to even put your foot forward to put the effort into heal every day. I think 9/11 9/11 was extreme. 9/11 was as bad an event as you could have imagined. Nobody could have imagined, just not even in terms of casualties, but in terms of physical destruction, the space that it took up and the time it took to, like, all these things add up. So in one aspect, I know that life was difficult as a South Asian before 9/11. I think that it just got astoundingly worse after 9/11. I don't know if another event could have carried that type of weight, but that's the reality that we live with now, was that 9/11 was probably the worst thing imaginable for Muslim people, and a terrible, terrible event for South Asians to reconcile with and even fight today. I hope that 9/11 changes the way the diaspora reacts to problems that we faced before too. Think about how many times that the diaspora fights. There's a fight every day within diaspora. It's India, Pakistan one day, or Bangladesh, Pakistan one day. When you're in this country after 9/11, we're all the same. We really are. The discrimination doesn't matter where you're from. They don't care what language you speak. So I hope that the after effects of 9/11 are that we band together and we recognize that, the same thing, our cultures might be different, but here the issue is the same. The issues are the same, and they will be the same as long as whatever forces are in power, we're all going to be brown.